Good evening and welcome to Quizzy Monday. We're in the middle of the World Cup, apparently, and there was a penalty shootout in the World Cup. There was a penalty shootout on Quizzy Monday in Mastermind. We also had 4 fantastic teams to watch in Only Connect and University Challenge. So lots to talk about. Now, I don't have a wealth of guests in terms of numbers, but what I lack in quantity, I more than make up for in quality. We've got John Robinson of the Harlequins from Only Connect. You saw him in the title sequences just there. We've got him to come on and tell us all about his Only Connect experience. Before we hear from John, let's just recap on who won the Quizzer of the Week and Team of the Week for last week. Last week, you voted Amy Schneider, the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions winner, as your Quizzer of the Week. Second was Leanne Sitt, the winner of Mastermind, and third was Kevin Ashman for his Full House. Team of the Week. First was Couples Therapy from Egghead. Second, the Zoomsbury Group, who won the Connections Online Quiz League. And third was Mothers Ruined, who won last week's Only Connect. Don't forget, you can nominate a player or team for Quizzer of the Week or Team of the Week at tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. That's tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. Nominations are open until 5 p.m. next Monday. So that is who won the baubles last week. There will be more nominations at the end of today's show. Don't forget, you can put comments or questions in the chat. Gerard has put, good evening all. Merry Eve of St. Nicholas. Christopher saying, hello, watching live for the first time for obvious reasons. Christopher, if we knew, we could have given you the link to come in. We probably still could if you wanted to email us. And Pam is saying, good evening all. So that's the preamble. Let us bring John Harlequin Robinson onto the stream. Evening, John.
Hello, good evening, Gareth. Evening, everyone.
Good to have you back. You are no stranger to Quizzy Monday. You've been on a good few times, having been one of Birmingham's fantastic team last year in University Challenge, and also previously because of Only Connect. This week on Only Connect, you must have gone into studio when you got wind of who you were going to be facing. That must have been one of these moments of, oh God, this early in the competition? How did you feel when you knew you were facing Tom's, Nick and Hugh?
Yeah, well, we funnily enough, before we even filmed our very first episode, I was in the bar on the night before we filmed our first episode, waiting to meet Anne for a drink, because Michael, for various reasons, couldn't come down the night before. And then who should walk into the bar but Nick Ball? And I thought, oh no. And then I went over and had a chat with him and asked who was in his team. And then he said that the Destroyer of Worlds was amongst his teammates. And I thought, oh, if we're facing them in our first match, it's going to be really frustrating. It turns out we weren't facing them in our first match, although we were facing really good opposition anyway in the Jugadores. But then, yeah, to face them in our second match, fortunately, it was a free hit really, because we went in thinking whoever loses gets to play another match. We fully went in expecting to lose, to be honest. We kind of just went in with the philosophy of let's have fun, let's enjoy ourselves, and I'm sure they'll destroy us. But fortunately, it turned out otherwise.
Yeah, Gerard's but star-studded evening on Only Connect. If you know our sort of Quizzy Monday shows, and if you know the quizzing circuit, there were some big names on there tonight. So not only yourself, Michael, and Anne in the Harlequins, who are all TV show veterans and successful in your own right, brilliant quizzers. You've got Ian Thomas, who up until recently was thought of as the best quizzer never to have been on TV. Well, he's been on TV. And you've got Nick, who's a former British quiz champion, and Hugh is just fantastic as well. So 2 brilliant teams set up to play. Before we got into the quizzing, something about Joe Lycett, John.
Yeah.
Do you want to fill us in on the Joe Lycett story?
Yeah, Joe Lycett is actually a friend of mine, which people may not be aware of. So he's also Birmingham based, as people might know. And actually, when we were both students together, so we were students at a similar time. He was a student in Manchester, but I was a student in Birmingham. And I worked at a theatre in Birmingham. And then when he was not at uni, he also worked at the same theatre, like doing front of house and stuff. And so we became friends doing that. And so I've got various Joe Lycett anecdotes I could tell you, actually. So I gave various anecdotes to the producers, and the one they liked was when he carried me in a wicker basket, and that's when actually he was performing in a show, and I was kind of helping backstage, and he like carried me onto the stage, hiding in this wicker basket all the time that his show was going on. I've got I had some even ruder Joe Lycett anecdotes, but they got cast by the wayside.
So this is one of the things that people that happens to the quizzers before you go into your first show, is the producers sit down with you and say, we want these little snippets of I once did X, or I met somebody, etc. Sometimes they embellish them a little bit. In your case, clearly no need to kind of embellish.
And I think they did say that they're trying to not have as many celebrity related anecdotes. So I think there was a time where there was a lot of got trapped in a lift with Pierce Brosnan, or accidentally trod on the foot of Valerie Singleton or whatever. And I think they've said they're trying to move away from having all those celebrity ones, but they liked the Joe Lycett one so much that they kept that one in there.
Well, that was a good one. It got people talking. A few comments on Twitter, including from Aaron Pam, who said, ask him about it. Done it then, Pam. Done it. So, watching this show back, how much of it came flooding back to you?
Well, I was saying this to my wife before we started watching the show, that I really couldn't remember hardly any of the questions from this episode. From our first episode, for whatever reason, a lot of the questions were in my memory. I sort of remember getting things right, getting things wrong. But for this one, there were about 2 questions that I remember coming up. The rest of them were a bit of a blank. And even watching it tonight, as they were coming up, I was thinking, I can't remember this at all. And I can't even remember what the answer is, which is even worse. So like the one where it was whatever it was, to the east, to the west, and it was port, starboard, etc. As that was coming up, I was thinking, I can't remember what this is at all. And even when the answer came up, I was like, okay, yeah, fine. But it just goes to show the memory does funny things to you.
It does. We had somebody on last week who said that they're watching Mastermind, I think it was, and they didn't get the answer at home this time, but they got it when they're in the black chair. And it's like, well done, past me. So it is a funny experience. First round was quite tight between yourselves and the cunning planners. What are your kind of memories of the questions there and how it played out?
I think they took it by a couple of points, didn't they? And I think at that stage we were thinking, this is downhill from here. They're going to take every round. But I think I'm just trying to think of some of the questions that were in the first round. The Guggenheim one that came up first, we were quite pleased with that. Especially there were a few questions tonight that I have to say it suited us quite well, having two Americans in our team. So later on, there's a question about American currency. And what else was in the first round?
Do you think with that Guggenheim one, because it was like, you're so close, and just kept talking. It was like just a minute, but for only Connect, it's like didn't pause, didn't hesitate until she mentioned the critical word of Peggy Guggenheim.
Yeah, I mean you've got to be careful, because obviously you don't want to go too specific and then it turns out it's wrong. So I think the general advice to anyone else who going on the show is start off broad, and then Victoria will always say, I need to hear something more specific. But two or three times you have to say that for that. But the quite like the question about the English translations of coffee shops with the Costa and Cafe Nero and things. That's quite a nicely done question.
That was very well spotted as well. There was that Costa moment. I guess that looking for anagrams in Only Connect questions helps, and if you got a single word one. But even so, then I wouldn't have thought of Le Pain Quotidien. That was a cracking get. So.
I saw a couple of people, I think, on Twitter say that they hadn't heard of Le Pain Quotidien. Fortunately, I spend a lot of time going down high streets and going to coffee shops. So.
A lot of reaction about the Hanforth Parish Council.
Oh, that was a great question.
Julie's iPad was, I think, where I twigged, but it was just. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And it was probably only like 2 years Looking at probably about 2 years ago, but it just feels like so much longer.
Yeah, and of course, what you have to bear in mind so we filmed this back in March or April, I think. So it was even more, it was slightly more relevant or slightly more current back then. But yeah, it goes to show how quickly these things change. That 6-8 months later on, it's all but forgotten.
Yeah. But it was lovely. And now, people in the chat, if you've got favourite questions that you want to comment on, don't be afraid to put them in there, and we'll bring those into the discussion. But 6 points to 4, and so you said you're kind of like a little bit concerned that they were going to run away, and when you got players of that caliber opposite you, I can see the worry. But round 2, you guys played a blinder in round 2.
Yeah, I mean, I've really got to take my hat off to, I think, Michael and Anne. Both got a lot better answers than I did tonight, to be honest. So Anne's answer at the French Dispatch for the picture where Bill Murray was the final answer. And to be honest, on that, I think after the very first picture, Anne leaned over to me and said, "I know what the answer is." And I thought, fine, I'll just hand it over to you if it comes over. So she's so good on that kind of. She openly admits like super lowbrow stuff. She's really good on.
I mean, that was brilliant, and it's one of those ones. I guess when you know it, you're just sat there thinking, "Don't stumble on it. Don't have that moment of revelation." You're trying to keep a poker face in case people can read minds, because it's just that paranoia. But it was brilliant from Anne, as we wouldn't expect anything else. But because I was thinking, oh, tilde, is this diacritic marks? Is this? I was kind of way off the mark. But I guess knowing the film and knowing the memes, that's a cracking connection on her point. And then you got you picked up a bonus with that. You picked up a bonus on the American coins one. Again, they were fishing around the currency thing.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that I suspect if people watching at home may have worked it out, but under the pressure of the time and the studio, and I think it's the sort of thing that those guys normally would have got, but it's just the TV studio does funny things to you.
It does. I mean, if any of them had been Hamilton fans, they would have known that Hamilton is the $10 founding father without a father. Exactly. So they wouldn't have been thinking it was dollar bills. They might have tripped into the right answer by thinking if it's not notes, it might be coinage, but they didn't, which was good for you guys. Michael is saying Le Pen are based entirely in London. I think I cannot verify that, but I certainly see them around, that's for sure. Gerard, I was on Twitter saying I hadn't heard of it. Costa and Cafe Nero have reached Shropshire. There is something about the universality, I guess, of clues and whether they are genuinely kind of broadly applicable. Chris, I've never heard of it, but then I'm a Greg's guy. Well, I understand their vegan sausage rolls are very good, but I've not been near one. And Brendan, I knew it, but then I used Le Pen, which makes all the difference. Is there a pun in there that I'm missing, or is that just that you do go to Le Pen all the time, Brendan? We need to know. Yes. So I liked the albums one as well, because there were so many ways that you could have gone wrong on that one. You started heading towards Wilson's at one point, and managed to steer yourselves away from that one. But was it Taylor Swift that kind of gave you the albums thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think up to that point, as you say, we kind of flirted around some other ideas. But when you 2020 Taylor Swift, and I thought, what did Taylor Swift do in 2020? She released a couple of albums. And the hardest thing actually was then trying to come up with an answer which was definitely right. And I was kind of I was under the pressure. I was I'm a big music fan, but suddenly I was thinking, I need to name a band or artist that released one album, and what happened if they released some obscure B-side album or an album of rarities or live album. So then Michael fortunately just shouted out Radiohead 2000. I did
wonder whether he was just throwing out a band or a year, or whether he knew it. But clearly it was acceptable. So
yeah, I mean, they did actually have to have a little pause in the recording there to go off and check and make sure it was just one album that Radiohead had released. So yeah, fortunately it was okay.
Yeah, and that's right, because you have to make sure that you have to neg check it, as they say, and she can't have every band and every album in every year on her list. So I think that's fair enough. And they do check things, even if you give a plausible sounding alternative answer, they do check to see whether that could work as well. We've got Homer J, 1889, Quiz Monday tweeter for 5 years. Glad to see this show exists. Well, glad you found us. And we are here every week talking about the evening's quizzing. I should say, we were meant to be joined tonight by Anne, who is unfortunately unwell. There's a lot of the lurgy around. Ian from the Cunning Planners. He has COVID. There's a lot of lurgy around. And Nick is out quizzing because that's the name of the game. So we are we were hoping to have more tonight, but we are delighted anyway that John is here. And if you are watching Anne or Ian on your sick beds, hello, and we hope you get better soon. Cool. So 11-8 at the end of those 2 rounds. How does that change your perceptions then, going into the walls, being ahead? Are you starting to do mental calculations of what you think you need to get on the wall in order to be competitive in the missing vowels?
I guess to an extent, I think we kind of assumed that they would do really well on the wall. We were hoping that we would do well. And so we thought, even if we both score full points on the wall, we'll still be 3 points ahead going into the missing vowel. So yeah, so we just thought if we can really nail the wall and put down a marker, then yeah, as it turned out, I have to say I think their wall was harder than ours because, of course, which people may not know if they haven't been on the show, that you don't get to see the other team's wall until you see it on TV. So tonight was the first time I'd seen their wall. And I do think they had, it was a bit of a stinker that they were given. I'm not sure if we would have solved it. Because I think the Gallifrey one was a big red herring that they kept on putting in. And I think
it was a horrible red herring, really, because you're thinking that's, that has to go in that group. You would never leave it out. I mean, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, so I knew that Midnight and New Earth were also Doctor Who related planets, but I would have been keeping Gallifreyan all the way along, unless, I guess, you spotted the women's references to women at the start of things, and then it must be Gal for Gallifrey. But I would have kept circling around those things, not understanding why it wasn't working.
Yeah, fortunately, I think we were glad to get the Star Trek one rather than the Doctor Who, because Anne's a big Star Trek fan. I was a bit of Star Trek geek growing up as a kid, so that suited us much more than Doctor Who, to be honest.
Yeah, and we did see Anne easing into her geekdom there with the discussion about Star Trek afterwards, which was very nice. Going into Trills and Klingons, Ferengi, Romulan cloaking devices. I mean, it's heaven sent, this topic for Only Connect. But yeah, that first wall that was just I don't know. They got the solemn one. They didn't get Maths. They didn't get the Doctor Who one, and they didn't get the girls one. Somebody put earlier that this was critical, but of course you went into your wall not knowing how they've done at all. So not even not so much that you haven't seen the questions. You don't even know the score at that point when you're going in.
Yeah, so the only time you hear the score is just before the missing vowel round, when Victoria announces it, and so at that point we were obviously quite surprised because we thought they would have done really well, but they were just unfortunate with the wall they chose.
Cool. Yes. Now, before we go and quickly look a little bit more at your wall, just want to say Christopher is in the chat. I think you're saying you'd be happy to come on, Christopher. If you email allthingsquiz@gmail.com, I'll send you a link to be able to come in and you can join us when we talk about Mastermind. So we look forward to hearing from you. So yes, and to just wrap up the walls before I have to play a little trailer. your wall, you solved it so quick. That was rapid.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good teamwork. I think all of us managed to chip in and contribute really well. And there was one of those great moments where the penny just dropped when we saw the Lou, Lav, John, etc. ending of the words, which is a really good moment when you spot that. But we had done a lot of practice, and we each kind of had assigned roles, and Michael's part of Michael's role was to look for hidden words or words at the end or words at the beginning. So I think he spotted that, and then obviously once you get one or two groups, it makes it so much easier because some of the red herrings get taken away.
I mean, it was
very pleased with that.
Yeah, the chirp, the demijohn toilets. I mean, Lav, Lou. I'm just, superb stuff. I'm told that Chris has sent an email to us, so absolutely. I'm just checking for that. Can't see it at the moment, but I'll do a refresh and hopefully it will pop in. Chris, as soon as we do, I will send you the link to be able to join us. But before we move on to talk about the missing vowels, I'm going to just play this. We are a sort of volunteer, not-for-profit channel. We're supported, though, by members who join our Patreon membership. We've got 3 new members, and we want to celebrate those 3 new members and all the other members who support this channel. So, Chris, we still haven't had your message, so we'll wait for that to come through. So thank you to all of our Patreon members. There are 3 different tiers of membership, starting at £3 a month, and you get the monthly quiz for that. And we do all sorts of other things. We did some Richard Osman House of Games type stuff recently. If you want to support the channel and join in with some of the stuff we do, then it would be great to have you along. Now,
I can thoroughly recommend it. As a Patreon member, I can thoroughly recommend it.
Thank you, John. The extra points for you next time.
They didn't pay me to say that, honestly.
So going into missing vowels, you had a very healthy lead. When you sat down in the studio and were told it was 12 to the cunning planners, 21 to yourselves, did that even compute in your brain? Are you thinking, 9 points difference, 3 sets of vowels?
Obviously, that gave us a bit of confidence going into it, but we knew how good they were going to, especially Ian on the buzzer. We'd heard, because at that stage we hadn't seen any of the episodes being broadcast, but just from knowing Ian at other quizzes, and we'd kind of heard how he'd done on the first episode. He's just so lightning quick on the vowels that we thought it's conceivable that he could get every single missing vowels one, and then if we buzz in incorrectly for 1 or 2, then we're done for. We obviously were quietly confident, I guess, but we thought anything could still happen given the quality of the opposition.
Somebody said higher up, I don't even know where it was, quite early on in the thing, about the Piet Mondrian questions. They were just, I mean, it was predictable, I guess, once you've seen the first one and certainly the second one. But of course, we see it at home a little earlier than you see it in the studio. So when you twigged what was happening with those questions, did you kind of think, let's just buzz in and then we'll work it out, or is that a bit of a risk for you?
I think we'd sort of said beforehand that we wanted to make sure we didn't neg. I think we probably were maybe a little more cautious on the buzzer than we would have been if we were going into the round behind. Because I think you just have to have one syllable wrong, and then obviously you lose it. So yeah, I think, like you say, there is a slight delay. So what people probably aren't aware of, who haven't been on the show, is there's probably 3 or 4, if not 5 or 6 people buzzing for most of the questions, probably. And yeah, again, they did really well on the missing vowels. They got more than we did, I think, overall. But I think Michael was probably our star player on the vowels, to be honest. He did really. I think he got 3 of the 4 Mondrians, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost kind of fruitless task, really, for them to claw that back, particularly once you kind of picked up a few. And so it was a little bit of gambling on their part. But in the end, you were relatively comfortable winners. 11-point margin, 27-16. Going into your next round, you must have had a lot of a real boost from beating a team that good.
Yeah, I think we were obviously delighted afterwards. As I said earlier on, we kind of went in not necessarily expecting to win, so we were kind of in a bit of shock after the show. But they're also, as is the case for all of the teams, and I'm not just saying this, they're genuinely all such lovely people. I think that the casting producers do a really great job, not just casting people who are good at the quiz, but also they seem to cast people who are genuinely really nice and friendly and interesting people. So they were very gracious as well afterwards in defeat, and then we hung around after the show and went out and spent the day in Cardiff together with them. The whole thing was really nice.
Saw pictures during the week of some of you going to museums and others, I guess, the pub. But
so we went to the museum in the evening and then to the hotel bar in the museum in the afternoon, the hotel bar in the evening with 2 or 3 of the other teams as well.
Yeah, Andrew put in here, Harlequin scored 50 points across their 2 episodes, hugely impressive. And there was a comment from Brendan. I think the dynamic in John's team is a joy, just like Newnham in UC. It really was, although somebody did post on Twitter, John. John Robinson seriously needs to up his specs game. So
it's true.
You did have the 3rd quietest pair of specs on display on your team.
I guess the TV might just explode if we all had really crazy specs on. So I think one of us maybe needs to calm it down a bit, just to temper it a little bit. Although wait till the next episode. You never know what we'll be wearing in our next episode.
Well, we can't wait to look for. I can't even speak now. We can't wait until the next episode. It will be great to see you all quiz again. You're a brilliant team, and we really enjoyed watching you. We're going to bring Christopher on shortly, and we'll cover Mastermind. Before we do that, I just want to play this about our What is the Question competition. This week we asked you to write questions to which the answer was tag. You voted on them, and this was the winner. What would a polyglot add to a log to increase their repertoire? Well done, Liz Poulter. Now, the latest answer in need of a question is Brazil. It was released on Sunday, and people have been sending in questions. You can now vote on the long list at tinyurl.com/WITQ Brazil. Voting will be open until Wednesday, when we'll release the shortlist to find the winner. Okay, we are back, and I'm glad now to be able to bring on a nicely unexpected guest. We've got Christopher, who starred in that Mastermind penalty shootout tonight. Evening, Christopher. Oh, and we have a picture of Christopher. This is going well. We can't hear you, Christopher, when you're not moving.
Evening, Gareth. How are you?
Good, Christopher. It's good to see you on tonight's Mastermind. You did The Cure.
Thanks.
You picked up 7 points on your specialist subject round. It was, until Fiona, a relatively low-scoring specialist subject round. How did you feel about it? Everybody kind of goes into their first Mastermind thinking, oh God, I don't want that nightmare of getting nothing, but also kind of half dreaming you're going to get everything. How did you feel after that round?
Yeah, so I think the first things I've learned from being on Mastermind is that you literally need to know everything, because the one question you don't expect to come up is the one question that comes up. So So I thought there'd be more questions. I thought there'd be more questions about some of the music, where they charted, things like that. I had no idea they were going to ask who was on the front cover of Staring at the Sea. That was definitely not one I prepared for. But no, I was happy with how I scored in the special subject in the end. It was I didn't want the 0. Didn't want to get low single figures. I feel I could have got one or two more of the questions I got wrong, but I can't say I just went with 7.
Yeah, and in the context of the game, until Fiona stepped up and got 12, you would have been feeling relatively comfortable about that. And then once she gets 12, you sat there thinking, "Oh well, that's my chance gone."
Yeah, no. The moment she got 12, I thought, no, there's no way I've got a chance of winning it. She is like at that point, I thought she's probably going to ace the general knowledge. Her special subject round was nigh on perfect. There was no way. I thought there's no way that I'd even have a chance of competing with her.
And I think we have to pay tribute to the fact it was a brilliant special subject round. She got 12 out of 13. There's one she passed on the French Wars of Religion. Fiona's a teacher, as are you, John. Why do teachers, the one profession where you might well get a lot of ridicule if something goes wrong, why do teachers put themselves up for quiz shows in quite large numbers?
I mean, I guess I can't speak for every teacher, but I suppose we're kind of used to the pressure of being in front of a potentially hostile audience of kids every day. So I guess the pressure of having someone firing questions at us is something that we're not unused to if our kids are asking us awkward questions or asking us stuff about a topic that we might not be sure about. So so I guess we're maybe used to dealing with that sort of pressure, I suppose.
Well, very brave. Chris, back to Christopher, Chris Dyson saying, seemed like there were lots of questions on the Cure's early days. Did you, have what was the scope of your subject that you agreed with the Mastermind team?
Well, with the team there, they said that the questions could be anything to do with where it came, any of the chart positions, anything, any news stories relating to the Cure. But there was one main textbook used for a lot, in relation to these, and having gone back to the book, a lot of the questions that was asked more or less from that book. So I do feel that if it would have studied my source material a bit better, I might have got some of the more tricky questions. But no, I was prepared that literally anything could have come up from the very early days and pre-early days all the way up until 2020. Although the actual scope ended up ending in 2008, the last time they actually released music. But I'd kind of prepared for that. I didn't think they'd cover too much of anything that's happened in the last 12 years. But I feel I had a good overall coverage of everything. But like I say, some of the questions I thought would come up didn't come up. But the ones that did, I made sure that at least had a good knowledge of that.
Always difficult to second guess the questions, really. And I guess next time round, when you go for it again, which I'm sure you will, you will have a better idea of the kind of preparation that you're going to have to do to really nail your subject. But your general knowledge, you must be happy with that. 10 out of 17 took you into a tie of the lead, which, as it turned out, took you into a tie break. So you must have, felt you really did yourself justice in that general knowledge round.
No, definitely was really happy with general knowledge. Although I always feel that with Mastermind, when they say general knowledge, it's more or less specialist. It more or less is specialist knowledge. So I was definitely happy to get more than half right in that. And there's a few questions I just wasn't sure about. But I've always going into it, I'd said to myself, if I didn't know an answer, guess, because the chances are if you make a guess, you're more or less there. You get more chances of getting it right by guessing than passing. So the question on Benjamin Britten, the answer Benjamin Britten, that was a complete guess, and thankfully got that one right. A few of the other ones had no idea. Like I knew nothing about ladies football. I feel if that question had been asked now, I probably would have got the answer right. But it was filmed before the England won the World Cup, and I had no idea at that stage. I probably would have got it right now, but I thought I might get in the air on Twitter for that one, for getting that one wrong. But thankfully, I didn't see anything about that.
I think your accent may have insulated yourself a little bit from
Yeah.
from criticism on that, to be fair. But the Benjamin Britten thing, that's a really good example, because in your case, two important lessons, really. You know, one, don't pass, because if you had done a pass with your score, you would have just lost anyway. But the Benjamin Britten one, it just throws the value out of putting an intelligent guess out there rather than, you know, Smith or something like that. You know, it was at least a composer of the right vintage turned out to be the right one. Did you have a pass strategy or a don't pass strategy?
Yeah. Well, I think whenever I was applying for it, I thought in my head, if I don't know the answer, I'm just going to say Humpty Dumpty. As you probably saw, I didn't in the end go for that, but I just tried to think of a semi-intelligent answer that at least made sense, and if I felt I could guess something around the right ballpark, just to go for it. I think during the cure round, at one point I was so unsure, I ended up just repeating one of the bands that was mentioned in the question because I was sure, sir, but if it did go to have went
I
to
think
have
you're
that,
breaking up a bit, Chris, there. It might be...
that I might get, so it was a bit...
Chris, if you could go into your settings and
hello?
there's a camera resolution setting. If you could drop your settings to low, that might improve your bandwidth. And then because you broke up a bit there. So John, whilst Chris is looking at settings, we have to spare more than a thought really for Fiona in that, because she did so well in the first round, and the general knowledge just didn't happen. Chris saying, I struggle with Fiona's general knowledge round. I thought she was a bit unlucky. Fiona obviously had a meltdown in general knowledge. Really felt for her. It was just, you know, there but for the grace of God. I mean, what were your thoughts watching that?
Yeah, it's one of those things. We've seen it, you know, a fair few times on Mastermind. She won't be the first and she won't be the last, where you get one or two wrong and then it just becomes a bit of a spiral. And I've never done Mastermind, but I can imagine that, you know, you start to panic, and then the more questions you get wrong, the more you're then panicking, and then the temptation is just to throw out a stupid guess. Whereas the opposite is the case. If you have a couple of lucky guesses in there, then your confidence is going to go up. So yeah, I did feel, I felt for her, because clearly she was struggling a couple of times. But equally well done to Christopher, and really well done as well, obviously, to Colin. Was that his name?
Colin,
Chappy one. I'm not sure I've ever seen it before, where someone who scored the lowest on specialist subject then went on to win the whole show. So I don't know if that's a first or what. Because I think he got, did he get 4-4, I think, on his specialist subject, and then went on to...
And then, very, very unusual in that sense. Christopher, before we move into the tie break, hopefully we've got you back now. How was Fiona after the episode? Because that sort of thing could be a really big blow. How was she, you know, in herself, philosophical, you know, how did she cope with it?
Talking to her too, I could tell she was quite disappointed afterwards. There was I think it felt that I think she got all of those early questions wrong. I think that threw her a little bit from what I understand. So I think if once you get one or two wrong in a row, it's just so easy to be knocked. And I think that's what happened. Those early questions just kind of threw her a bit.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but you know she still only finished one off, getting into a three-way tie, or actually her passes would have cost her.
Still a great score.
So she was close. But then tie break. Did you realise it was going to be a tie break, or was that a surprise when you read out the scores?
No, to be honest, I'd forgotten that Colin had passed in the first round. I thought I didn't realize he passed in the first round, and I didn't think he didn't pass in the general knowledge. So I assumed at that point that he didn't, because I knew we were both on 17 points points, and I knew I asked the one in the first round. I thought I lost. I was on the verge of, I think, I was about to turn around to congratulate him, but then I realised actually I made it. Definitely did not come on.
And the tiebreak itself.
I think he passed the very last question on the first round.
He did, yeah, and that was the thing that kind of stopped him winning outright. We've seen a comment that the tiebreak questions were hard. You felt like you came close to a couple and you hit the post. The Chris Hoy instead of Chris Froome. It's like you're clearly thinking of the right person, but there's a little bit of I don't know, almost like auto completion of your answer or something going on. Watching it back, did you feel that it was an opportunity missed, or actually, fair result?
Well, with the first one, the touching the void answer, as soon as I said beyond the void, I just realized in my head I've got this wrong. It was touching the void, and I was just really that just was just annoyed me a little bit. Then the second one, the cycling one, in my head I actually did have either Chris Hoy or Chris Froome, and I wasn't sure in my head which one to go for. Eventually went for Chris Hoy because I thought he's the bigger name, so I went for him. And so if I got those two right, I feel it won. And then the first question, I did GCSE French. I just wish I'd have kept a bit of the knowledge back in my head, because I think if it takes just a second, I probably would have got chassis, but just in the heat of the moment, you just second out yourself and just go for the first thing that seems right. But no, especially with the touching the void question, I feel if I'd have just given myself a few extra seconds, I probably would have got that one right.
Yeah. Brendan's saying, take your time in a tiebreak. There's no limit on your thinking time. I mean, I found when I was in a tiebreak on my Mastermind, they told us there was no limit on thinking time, and then they came and said, we need an answer, which rather threw me. So, but for you, Christopher, looking back on it now, you came so close. Do you think you'll go for Mastermind again?
Well, actually, a couple of days ago, I was looking at the application form again, so I'm definitely want to dip for it again. It may not be in the next series, but definitely down the line, it's definitely on my to-do list. I think one of them was on a few years ago, and today I finally got to do. I know I did 15-1 a couple of years ago, and then today. Mastermind finally went out, so I've ticked off the two I really wanted to do. I'd like to try Mastermind again just to see if I can do a little bit better, but it may not be for a few years.
Well, well done anyway. You came very, very close. Hopefully next time you'll go one better. Thanks so much for popping up in our chat, Christopher, and coming in at incredibly short notice. If we have you on again, we'll kind of make sure the technical gremlins are sorted out before we bring you on stream. But thanks so much. We will pop you back out, and John and I will finish off. But thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks.
Yes, Christopher.
So that was Christopher, the runner-up in tonight's Mastermind. Great guy, brilliant to have him come on. People can always say, hey, fancy coming on. I was on the show tonight, and we'll try and bring you into the chat. Before we go on to just look at University Challenge and wrap things up, do I need to play another video? I don't think I do need to play another video, because we've only got the nominations to come. So, John, thoughts on University Challenge? We had two teams who were really, really good in their first round, but didn't win. Sheffield University, captained by Lewis Jones, friend of this show, and Newnham, who were just lost only the other week, but were brilliant against Courtauld. What did you make of that episode tonight?
I thought, great episode. I thought two really, really good teams. It's a shame in a way that it's a bit cliched, but a shame that we had to lose one of them. I have to say, I think going into, no disrespect to Newnham at all, but just because I didn't really know any of them, whereas I think certainly three of the four Sheffield team I know reasonably well. And quiz with or against. So I kind of expected them to win, to be honest. So yeah, really, really well played from Unum. I thought they were a great team, not just in terms of their knowledge, but they just came across as a really lovely group of people. They seem to be having fun and laughing and joking, which is really nice, because sometimes I think UC has a bit of a reputation as this very dour, serious academic quiz. So I think it's really, really nice to see such a fun, lively team on. And big commiserations to Sheffield, because they're a great bunch of people, great bunch of quizzers. So yeah, it's a shame that they didn't make it, but really, really good performance from Unum, I thought.
When you've got two really good teams and potentially really closely matched, there is a real importance in getting in early on questions, particularly when you think that something, a question is opening up and others are going to be on the buzzer quickly. And Brendan's Sheffield's mistakes on opening questions cost them dear. But do you think those were gambles that, in the context of the match, Sheffield had to be taking? They had to perhaps, when it was talk about an epic and he went in on Beowulf and things like that, that actually, and the match situation just kind of forced them into that sort of thing.
Yeah, especially maybe not so much early on. I think in the first half of the match, you want to be relatively cautious and see which way it goes. But certainly in the second half, if you're trailing, you've got to take that risk. And I think a couple of the risks that they took, I think they were genuinely surprised when Paxman said they were wrong a couple of times, especially Andrew Fisher buzzed in and looked really shocked when he was told it was wrong. And I have to say as well, there was the question about what's the third longest river in China, and I would have buzzed in and said Pearl at that stage.
I said Pearl as well.
Yeah, and that's when Danny Lardner did that. And when Paxman said he was wrong, I was really surprised. He was surprised. So yeah, it was really unlucky, because they were making sensible guesses, sensible attempts to answer. They weren't buzzing in with ridiculous answers. So yeah, they were just really unfortunate, I think.
Yeah, and he said about Ellis. I think somebody, Brendan, put. Ellis was fantastic tonight. She got a lot of openers. She got really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starters. But her captaincy was great. There were times when, her team is very chatty and very lively, but she had that calmness to just see and think what the answer should be. She didn't get flustered. She cut through the noise. I thought she was really, really good as a captain. I mean, you've been at close quarters in a university challenge situation. I guess, when there are competing voices and competing ideas, it can't be easy for somebody to have that presence.
Especially with the setup as it is at the moment, where you have the screens and the earpieces, so you can hear voices coming across through your earpiece, and it must be it's really difficult to kind of cut through the noise. I think one particularly good example of that was the chicken pox question, where it was what does the varicella virus lead to, or whatever. And I think they had there was something else they were going to say. I can't remember what it was. And then someone else said, mumps, and then measles, and then someone shouted out chicken pox, and then they said, is that the same as shingles? And it was just really great team dynamic. They were all chipping in. And then, again, the captain managed to decide, no, we're going to go with this. And it was the correct one. So, really good work all around, I thought.
I thought there was some great team play all over the place. The fish by Andrew Fisher on Terence Rattigan was just great. That back and forth between him and Lewis was great. I loved when Lewis came up with protein as an answer and said, I know science.
Yeah.
That was great.
I also like how Lewis in his introduction said, I'm studying journalism for my sins.
I got a bit of reaction.
Really nice a few light-hearted moments I thought were good.
I do have to take issue, of course, with the fact that that Paxo pronounced the River Nen incorrectly when it flows through Northampton. Much of Northamptonshire, it's the River Nen, not the Neen. So you'd have thought they would have got that right on a show like that. But anyway, parochialism is alive here. I loved the Motown stuff, but I think my favourite moment was when Ellis buzzed in on A- IB, which I haven't got a clue.
Superb.
She buzzed in and said, oh, no, I buzzed too early. And then A- IB. And then it was right. And then the next next bonus question came and went, and she said, sorry, I was zoned out. And it's like, you're still thinking about that starter question, aren't you?
And I think I can't remember what she's studying, but I don't think it's anything maths related. I think, but so yeah, so that, I mean, to me, I'm rubbish at maths, but that seemed a really tough math starter, and yet she managed to pull that from nowhere. Especially given at least one of the Sheffield team I know is studying maths. So yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, so they're good. So Newnham, college with 500 people, to have a team that strong is just superb. It's a shame to see Sheffield go, because you and I both quizzed against Sheffield. We know how good they are. It didn't happen for them this time, but they are a very good team. It's a shame. It's a shame they came up against a team quite as good as Newnham today.
But great as well. I've got to have I know Newnham is all female college, so but by its nature they're going to be just women on the team. But yeah, it's great to have a team of four females going through to diversify the show as well.
Indeed, and actually, somebody pointed out on Twitter, it's getting to the point where it's no longer a remarkable thing to have diverse teams on University Challenge, which is as it should be. So. Brilliant. So that's University Challenge. We are now going to run through the nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week. These are this week's nominees for Quizzer of the Week. Dan Burgess for 12 out of 15, the top score in pop solos. Clive Dunning for a full house in OQL's Cup and Plate. Peter Edis for a full house in OQL's Cup and Plate. Greg Fanu for OQL USA, full house. Patrick Friel for an OQL USA full house. Dowd Jackson of QLL for a President's Cup full house. Ross James, the top scorer in the Asia Pacific Quiz Championship. Evan Lynch, the Quest Grand Prix winner. And tonight's Mastermind winner. And for Team of the Week, the nominees are Inquisition, the only team to defeat a top-place side in OQL USA. Mangoes, who overturned a 24-point deficit in the OQL Cup and Plate. Tonight's Only Connect winners. Team India, who were the Asia-Pacific Quiz champions. Tonight's University Challenge winners. And Westminster, QLL President's Cup's top scorers. You can now vote at tinyurl.com/QW05DEC. That is tinyurl.com/QW05DEC. Voting is open until 6 p.m. on Friday. Okay, slight change to that because I was a little bit too previous with making that video. It's tinyurl.com/QW05DECA. We'll put that in the description to the video afterwards. If you want to check back in the video afterwards, that will be in there. And we're posting it on all our social medias. Obviously, that was recorded before tonight's show, so we now know that Colin was the winner of Mastermind. He's the person whose nomination is on the list. We know that the Harlequins won Only Connect, and their nomination, their name is on the list of nominees, and that Newnham College won University Challenge, so it's their name on there. But it's all generic because I recorded that earlier in the evening. So, traditional close of Quizzy Monday, John. What was your champagne moment of the night?
There were two, I think. I'm not going to choose anything from Only Connect because I think that's a bit self-indulgent. There are two moments on University Challenge that I really liked. So one was the buzz that we've mentioned that Ellis had on the whatever it was, A equals IB thing, and then the other one was the round on Barbie Girl, just because as someone who favours the lowbrow content over the highbrow most of the time, to hear people say plastic, fantastic, and all that kind of stuff was just a superb moment. So I'm going to go for the Barbie Girl bonus round on University Challenge.
That was a brilliantly inventive piece of question writing. I have to applaud the setters for that. I think my highlight is that sorry I was zoned out moment, because that buzz was incredible. And then the reaction was so human, but that sense of humor, it was just, I think it typified that team. They were a joy to watch. But there's some other nice highlights during the day as well. The seeing a penalty shootout in Mastermind is always entertaining. And I think the Piet Mondrian missing vowels I really enjoyed. Lots of really nice questions tonight, actually. But it has to be Ellis. I think she was an absolute star tonight. And so that's a 100% vote for that moment as oh no, it was not, because no, you went for Barbie Girl.
Barbie Girl.
All right, kind of one and a bit. Yes, so Ellis gets my vote. So thank you. Oh, hang on. Oh, Valerie's bringing something up. Watch me wit, watch me nen.
Watch me nene. It's a popular song, Gareth.
Is it a popular song? Do they mispronounce the river that runs through Northampton, or is Gerard just winding me up?
He's making a classic pun. Classic Gerard pun.
Valerie's loved that. Brenda's made a comment about the Mangoes nomination. Third time in a row, Mangoes have overhauled a big deficit. Great stuff. The handicappers have done a really good job in the OQL Cup and Plate of getting teams running very close, even if they're in very different divisions. So, yes, so that is it for tonight. We will be back next week. Who knows who my guests will be? But if it's just me talking at you, it might just have to be me talking at you. But who knows? Thanks so much to John for coming on, for Christopher for coming in and watching and then jumping on the stream. And to those of you who've watched us before and returned, and those of you who were new, great to see that the newbies. Don't forget, every day between 12 and 2, we have lunchtime quiz time on Facebook and Twitter, where you can answer a question that we pose and then see some interesting information about the answer. What is the question is released every Sunday morning. Early on Sunday morning on Facebook and Twitter, you get the answer given to you, and you come up with your most cunning question, which we then put to a vote. And you can vote for that now at tinyurl.com/WITQ Brazil for this week's vote. And don't forget to vote for your quizzer and team of the week at tinyurl.com/QW05DECA. Brendan is wishing John good luck for the future in Only Connect, and thanks again to John. We will see you again next week. Until we meet again, have a wonderful week and goodbye.
Bye, everybody.